Welcome to the Get Trauma Informed podcast, dedicated to unraveling the complexities of trauma, its pervasive impact, and the journey towards holistic recovery and realignment. If your radiance has ever felt muted, like I and thousands of others, you're in the right place to reignite your inner light. I'm your host, Wellness Coach Liz Blanding, and this is the Get Trauma Informed podcast. Hi, and welcome to part 2 of Mini Trauma Recovery Talks, Phases of Trauma Recovery. In part 1, we covered phase 1 and 2. Phase 1 was acknowledgement of trauma. Phase 2 was stabilization and safety. Now we're going to move into phase 3, which is processing and understanding the trauma. Phase 4, grieving and mourning. And phase 5 is integration and reconnection. Phase 6 is growth and empowerment. Phase 7 is relapse prevention. Today, we're going to cover and tackle phase 3 and phase 4. So phase 3, we're processing and understanding the trauma. That means we're working through the emotions and memories related to that trauma. Wow. And in working through and working on those emotions, a lot is going to come up. But that's why I am such a proponent of journaling, because when you journal your journey, you can go back and see the progress you've made. And then there's some days that you just want to forget, but you'll see how far you progress as you continue to implement self-care, as you continue to implement you matter. I matter. As you continue to implement those steps and walk in your purpose, I promise you, one day you will wake up and you will feel a lot better. But it's drilling into the second half of not trauma is your fault. No, trauma is not your fault, right? We're going to lean into recovery is our responsibility, right? So when we take hold of that, we start to process and understand the trauma, and we start working through it instead of swallowing it, because when we keep it buried, it's progressive and it starts to erode our insides, and then it comes out and it erodes. We want it to come up and out in a controlled environment where we are journaling that journey, right? Okay, we want to engage in therapeutic interventions such as trauma-focused therapy, journaling, trauma-focused coaching, mindfulness, or mindful practice through processing the trauma. So we have to have it has to come up and out, right? We can't deny it. We can't swallow it and bury it, because it's progressive and it'll erupt on the people that you care about, that you love the most, because they're the closest to you, right? And you want to make sure that you're working through it so that it's not coming out harsh and brass to the people that we love, and we're hurting them and inadvertently traumatizing them because they're around us and they want to love us. We want to make sure that we are really, really processing that and writing it out. It makes all the difference in the world. Okay, and engaging in those interventions. We want to talk about grieving, phase 4, grieving and mourning, allowing yourself to grieve the loss caused by trauma. Let's sit with that for a minute, because losing a loved one is traumatic, right? We have to go through all of the ceremony. We had to go through all of that. I just buried my first cousin, and that was so hard. I thought I had it all together, but then when I got there, it came up and out. But you have to let it come up and out. Can't be embarrassed or ashamed, of how you process it. You process it in a safe environment, right? In a safety. So you want to grieve the loss caused by the trauma, the loss of safety, trust, and identity. Because that is huge. We lose our identity when trauma hits, right? We get lost. We don't know who we are. That's because we are fragmented and we're no longer working at 100% of ourselves. And think about it. If a baby, or like in my case, in conception, I was exposed to trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma. I didn't get a chance to meet myself until now. I'm in my late 50s, right? And I'm not ashamed of that, because right now I am living my best full life, because I finally met myself. All my pieces, I was able to pull them back together. I was able to help them. I was able to pull it all back together. That's the only way that I could say it, and become the person that I was intended to be when I got totally engrossed in not just the physical recovery of trauma, but also the the psychological, the mental, the mind, body, spirit, and the soul all coming together, and then you meet yourself. Wow, that's amazing, right? Accepting the emotional ties of trauma, such as sadness, anger, and confusion. And we've already talked about feeling unsafe all the time and making decisions off of just wanting a good night's sleep, right? Something that we take for granted, but just wanting a good night's sleep. All righty. That is all we have for you today in this mini trauma recovery talk. Do hope that resonate with you. And we do pray that because we're giving you bite-sized pieces, that they're a little bit more digestible, palatable, and more importantly, a way for you to execute on your recovery. All righty. Come on over and see us at oasiswellnessctrs.com. We are so grateful for our sponsors. One of our sponsors that is just absolutely incredible, amazing. All of them are. We want to give a shout out to WJBJ, the Soul Emporium Radio, giving you good music all the time. Alrighty. Thank you all for joining, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now. It's time to buckle up. No more suffering in silence. Our Power Pack journey to recovery and realignment starts now. Remember, you are collateral damage on someone else's warpath. Trauma is not your fault. Recovery, however, is your responsibility. I'm your host, Wellness Coach Liz Blanding, and this is the Get Trauma Informed podcast.